Okay, we're going to talk about another concept that you will do a lab on called longshore current. It sometimes gets other names called longshore transport / drift. And then current is when it's referring to the water. It says transport or drift because sometimes we're referring to the movement of sediment. So let's pretend we have a little sediment piece of sand that's floating in the water here or bouncing along the bottom of the ocean floor. And it's in the breaker zone where the waves are breaking. And so we have an incoming wave. So if we have an incoming wave, it's going to push this little sediment in this direction, in the direction of the wave. And all of you been to the beach have probably seen waves wash up on the shoreline. And then what happens to the wave after it washes up on the shoreline? Does it just stay on the shoreline, Kate?
No, like usually.
What does it usually do? Where does it go?
It usually comes back.
Yeah, it goes
usually,
back.
Or it's the sand. So.
Yeah, it goes back to the ocean. And what's causing it to go back is gravity because it's going down into the ocean and there's a slight incline. So now after one wave washing up and washing back due to gravity, my sediment is now here. Well, guess what? There's going to be another wave. So another wave comes in and it's also coming in from the same general direction. And it's going to move my sediment again up. So now my sediment is here. Now we know it's not going to stay there. It's going to go back because of gravity.
Is that why, like, sometimes when you go to the beach, there's, like, rocks, right? Like, when you...
Moving around?
Yeah. Or when, like, there's rocks, like, on the ground in the sand, like, right before, like, when you walk in.
Oh, yeah, because they got stuck. They weren't, they were too big to get moved back. Yes, that is why. So, again, this sediment, what's going to happen to it now? Next wave is going to push it again in that direction. So it's going to move again because of the wave. And now that it got pushed up with the wave, it's going to wash back down to gravity. So the things you want to note here is that if the wave is coming from this direction, wave will always push it in the same direction. And gravity always goes straight back. And that is longshore transport. So what that means is that this single sediment will be moving a net distance to the left. This is the net movement. So the overall movement is, yes, individually it's going up, down, up, down, up, down, but over time it will move towards the left. And that's going to affect the erosion patterns that we're going to see when we do our lab. All right, thanks. Okay, so we're going to do longshore current again, but this time let's say that the waves are coming from a different angle. Let's see what that looks like. So let's say the waves are coming from this way. All right, and let's say we have our little sediment here. You want to name the sediment? What's his name, Kate?
Caroline.
Caroline.
No, Susan.
Oh, Susan. It has to be Susan,
yeah,
of course.
Susan.
Okay, so let's say we have Susan the sediment. Oh, SS. So Susan the sediment. The waves are coming from this direction. Susan's going to move in this direction when that first waves push Susan. All right, and then Kate, where will Susan go once she's been pushed up here?
She'll probably come back.
She'll go straight back, yeah. Well, she's not a she, she's a sediment. It will go straight
She's
back.
also in a computer, too.
You know everyone's going to watch this, right?
Oh,
Okay.
well, hi, everyone.
All right, so then Susan's now here. Susan the sediment. Another wave comes, so it's going to push Susan again this way. When Susan comes up on shore, gravity will take Susan straight back.
Susan.
Do you see the pattern, Kate? So where's Susan going to go now?
She'll probably go back down, like that way. She'll go a little bit farther this way.
Yeah, and then back down to gravity. All right, we talked about net movement of the sediment. So the net movement over time will be in which direction?
Yeah, it'll move to like the right.
Yeah, so over time, the sediment will all move to the
Does
right.
it depend on which hemisphere you're in or not?
No, this just has to do, depends on, that's a great question. This depends on what direction the waves are coming from.
Okay, so
So
it
notice,
couldn't have left, it couldn't.
yeah, so notice the waves are coming from here, so the net movement's to the,
But if it was
Right.
going the other way, it would be going.
did you get that
This
one?
way.
Yeah, so when the waves are coming from this direction, the net movement's to the
Okay.
left.
Okay.
Do you see that? Boom and boom. All right, that's longshore transport. Okay, so looking at longshore current, just quick recap. If we have a wave coming from this direction, the net movement is to the right, and we've just went over that. So I'm going to give you some examples of an area in North Carolina along the Atlantic coastline. It's called the Outer Banks. It's a really popular surf destination. They get great waves. But they have a huge problem with longshore current eroding their beach lines and houses getting eroded away. They had such a bad issue that their lighthouse, the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, had to actually eventually get moved because the beach was eroding right up to it. They had tried to build these structures called groins. You can see them here, and then also here, to try to trap the sediment as it moved down the coastline. But eventually that wasn't enough, and they still had to move it. So what they did is they actually hoisted it up on a truck and took it a couple miles inland where lighthouses are supposed to be. They're supposed to be like a mile inland. And yeah, they actually picked it up and moved it on a truck. And that's the previous location. And that's it in its new location. So here's the old groin, and that's the lighthouse in its new location. This is the old groin, and we're looking south. So this is the north side of the groin, and this is the south side of the groin. And you can see on this side, a lot of deposition has happened because the sediment is moving down the coastline, and it's getting trapped here because there is a structure physically trapping it and not letting it continue to move. If you look on the south side of the groin, you can see that the coastline has cut way in, and that's because erosion is happening and there is no replacement of sediment here. So this side has a net erosion and this side has net deposition. If we look from the other angle, and yes, ignore the sunbathers, but if we look from the other angle, here's your groin here was built to trap the sand from longshore current, and you can see on the north side, the side above the groin, you can see sand is getting trapped all the way up to this point here. But this side, it juts in because this side has net erosion. It's eroding away and not getting the sand here. And so that was to help build up the beach so you could have your lighthouse still remain there, but it just wasn't still enough. So my question is, what direction is the longshore current moving in this picture and why? And I want you to sketch out your inference. Okay, I'm going to show you another scenario. This is also in the Outer Banks, and this is Oregon Inlet. An inlet is an area where there is a break between the islands. And so to get from island to island, they built a bridge. And again, longshore current transport here is such an issue. It's moving at a rate of 18 feet per year. The beach is moving sometimes. And that's really, really fast. And you can see here, this is the high rise of the bridge with the pilings. This side, so my first question is, which side of the bridge is experiencing erosion? And then my next question is, which side is experiencing deposition, so an accumulation of sediment? And my hint is, look at the bridge itself relative to where the islands are and look at which one has more sediment right near the bridge and which one is having a big gap. And so my last question is, which way in the picture is the longshore current moving? So if you look here at the picture, this side is having more deposition because you can see that sand is actually building up right where the pilings were. So at one point in time, the island ended way back here. All this has been added on. This side, it's eroding away. And you can see that because the pilings end here and the bridge continues a long way in the water. All of this has eroded away. And this is a huge problem for them because this bridge connects this island to the outside world. Without it, they have no way of going to grocery stores or getting the goods they need to live. And so they're actually going to project the bridge way over here and let this just erode away, and eventually this will link back up. So that means the longshore current is moving to the right in this picture because it's building up here and then eroding away here. So we also see this in Galveston. In Galveston, you may have noticed that there's a whole bunch of groins along the shoreline. And you can see here, if we look at this bottom groin, you can see there's a buildup of sand here and then a net erosion of sand here. And so that means that we have longshore current going down in this picture, down the coastline. So in this picture, again, here's another situation. Where do we have the net erosion? Where do we have net deposition? And which way is the longshore current moving? So look again at the bridge and look at the islands and see if you can figure that out. So this side would be net deposition. This side's net erosion.